iPhone 2G. The iPhone 2G was the very first iPhone, released back in 2007 by Steve Jobs. This device completely changed the smartphone industry because it introduced a full touchscreen interface with a multi-touch display. Before the iPhone, most smartphones had physical keyboards and styluses. So when Steve Jobs showed that you could use your fingers to scroll, pinch, and tap, it felt like something from the future. But looking back now, the original iPhone was actually very limited. There was no app store, no copy and paste, no video recording, and it only worked on the slower 2G cellular networks. It also had a pretty terrible camera and battery life. But despite all those limitations, this was the device that started everything. iPhone 3G. The iPhone 3G was released in 2008, and as the name suggests, it introduced support for faster 3G cellular networks. This meant web pages loaded faster and calls had better quality. But the biggest change was actually software-related. Apple launched the App Store with this iPhone, which allowed third-party developers to create apps. And this was a massive deal because before the App Store, you could only use the apps that Apple pre-installed on the phone. The iPhone 3G also added GPS for turn-by-turn navigation, which made it useful for maps and location-based services. In terms of design, it looked similar to the original but had a plastic back instead of aluminum. Oh yeah, and this was also the first iPhone that came in two colors, black and white. iPhone 4. The iPhone 4, released in 2010, was a huge redesign. It introduced the iconic glass front and back with a stainless steel frame around the edges, which gave it a premium and sleek look. Steve Jobs famously said it looked like a beautiful old Leica camera. This was also the first iPhone with a Retina display, which had such a high pixel density that the human eye couldn't distinguish individual pixels at a normal viewing distance. At the time, this was revolutionary because text and images looked incredibly sharp. The iPhone 4 also introduced the front-facing camera, allowing FaceTime video calls for the first time. However, this iPhone had a well-known issue called antenna gate, where holding the phone in a certain way would cause the cellular signal to drop because the antenna was built into the metal frame. Apple eventually offered free cases to fix the problem, but despite that, the iPhone 4 is considered one of the most influential iPhone designs ever. iPhone 5. The iPhone 5 came out in 2012, and it was the first iPhone to have a larger screen. It moved from 3.5 inches to 4 inches, which gave users more room to see content without making the phone too big. Apple also changed the design here, replacing the glass back with an aluminum body, which made it lighter and more durable. The iPhone 5 introduced the Lightning connector, replacing the older 30-pin dock connector that had been used since the original iPhone. And this Lightning port is actually still used on iPhones today, up until the iPhone 15 series. This was also the first iPhone to support 4G LTE networks, which made mobile data significantly faster. Oh yeah, and the iPhone 5 came in a new color option, slate black, which looked really nice but was prone to scratching. iPhone 6. The iPhone 6, released in 2014, marked Apple's entry into the phablet market. This was the first time Apple offered two sizes, the iPhone 6 with a 4.7-inch display and the iPhone 6 Plus with a massive 5.5-inch display. The design became much more rounded with curved glass edges and a thinner profile. But this generation also introduced a controversial design choice. The camera lens protruded from the back, which meant the phone wouldn't sit flat on a table. The iPhone 6 Plus also introduced optical image stabilization, which helped reduce blur in photos and videos. However, both models faced a major issue called bend gate, where the aluminum frame was prone to bending under pressure, especially when kept in tight pockets. Apple later reinforced the structure in subsequent models. This generation also introduced Apple Pay, allowing users to make contactless payments using NFC. iPhone SE first generation. The first iPhone SE was released in 2016, and the SE stood for Special Edition. This was Apple's attempt to offer a smaller, more affordable iPhone for people who didn't want the large screens of the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. It basically took the internal hardware of the iPhone 6s and packed it into the body of the iPhone 5s. So you got flagship performance in a compact 4-inch design, which was perfect for people who preferred smaller phones. It also retained the headphone jack, which was something Apple would remove later that same year. The first-gen SE became very popular among budget-conscious buyers and those who just wanted a simple, one-handed phone. iPhone 7. The iPhone 7, released in 2016, was controversial because Apple removed the headphone jack. The company argued it was a brave move to make room for other technologies, but it forced users to rely on wireless headphones or a Lightning adapter. The iPhone 7 introduced a new jet black color option which had a glossy, piano-like finish, but it was notorious for scratching easily. The iPhone 7 Plus was the first iPhone to feature a dual camera system, with one wide lens and one telephoto lens, which allowed for 2x optical zoom and the portrait mode feature that blurred the background behind subjects. Both models also gained water and dust resistance, which was a huge step forward for durability. iPhone 8. The iPhone 8, released in 2017, looked similar to the iPhone 7 on the outside, but it introduced glass backs again instead of aluminum. This was specifically to enable wireless charging, a feature Apple added for the first time. The iPhone 8 also came with a faster A11 Bionic chip, which improved performance significantly. But honestly, the iPhone 8 series was overshadowed by the phone Apple released alongside it, the iPhone X, because that was the real redesign that year. iPhone X. The iPhone X, pronounced iPhone X, was released in 2017 to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the iPhone, and this was the biggest redesign since the iPhone 4. Apple removed the home button entirely and replaced it with Face ID, a facial recognition system that used a sophisticated sensor array called the TrueDepth camera. The display became an edge-to-edge OLED screen, which offered deeper blacks and better contrast compared to the LCD panels used in previous iPhones. The iPhone X also introduced the notch at the top of the screen, which housed the Face ID sensors. At launch, the iPhone X had a starting price of $999, which made it the most expensive iPhone ever at the time, but it set the template for almost every iPhone that followed. iPhone 11. The iPhone 11 series, released in 2019, consisted of 3 models: the iPhone 11, the iPhone 11 Pro, and the iPhone 11 Pro Max. This was the first time Apple introduced the Pro branding for iPhones. The standard iPhone 11 became the successor to the iPhone XR, offering a more affordable option with a 6.1-inch LCD display and a dual-camera system. The Pro models, on the other hand, featured a triple-camera system that added an ultra-wide lens, allowing users to capture much wider shots. The Pro models also had OLED displays and a matte glass back, which felt premium and resisted fingerprints. The iPhone 11 series introduced night mode, which dramatically improved low-light photography by automatically brightening dark scenes without needing a flash, and battery life saw a big improvement across all models. iPhone SE second generation. The second-gen iPhone SE was released in 2020, and it followed the same formula as the first one. It took the powerful A13 Bionic chip from the iPhone 11 and put it into the body of the iPhone 8. So you got flagship performance in a familiar 4.7-inch design with a home button and Touch ID. This was a great option for people who didn't want Face ID or simply wanted a smaller, cheaper iPhone. It also became very popular for businesses and people upgrading from much older iPhones. And at $399 starting price, it was one of the best value iPhones Apple had ever made. iPhone 12. The iPhone 12 series, released in 2020, brought a major design change. Apple moved back to flat-edged, squared-off sides, similar to the iPhone 5 and iPad Pro designs. This made the phones look modern and also made them slightly thinner. The iPhone 12 was the first iPhone to feature an OLED display across all models, including the standard version. This was also the generation where Apple stopped including a power adapter or earpods in the box, citing environmental reasons. The iPhone 12 introduced MagSafe, a magnetic system on the back that allowed for snap-on accessories like wallets, chargers, and cases. The 12 Pro models added a LiDAR scanner, which improved augmented reality performance and low-light autofocus. And this was also the first iPhone to support 5G networks. iPhone 13. The iPhone 13 series, released in 2021, was more of a refinement than a redesign. The most noticeable change was the camera arrangement on the back of the standard iPhone 13, which switched to a diagonal layout instead of vertical. The notch was also reduced in size by about 20%, giving users slightly more screen real estate. The biggest improvement was battery life. The iPhone 13 series had significantly larger batteries, and the iPhone 13 Pro Max became known for having some of the best battery life of any smartphone on the market. Apple also introduced promotion on the Pro models, which was a 120Hz adaptive refresh rate display that made scrolling and animations feel incredibly smooth. The cinematic mode was also introduced, allowing users to record videos with a shallow depth of field that automatically shifted focus between subjects. iPhone SE third generation. The third-gen iPhone SE was released in 2022, and once again it used the same formula. Apple took the A15 Bionic chip from the iPhone 13 and put it into the iPhone 8 body. So you got the same 4.7-inch display, the same home button with Touch ID, but now with 5G support. This was aimed at the same audience as before, people who wanted a budget iPhone with modern internals but preferred the classic design. However, by this point, the market for small-screen phones had shrunk considerably, and many reviewers noted that the design was starting to feel very dated compared to the edge-to-edge displays on other iPhones. iPhone 14. The iPhone 14 series, released in 2022, made a few notable changes. Apple dropped the mini model due to low sales and introduced the iPhone 14 Plus instead, which gave users a larger 6.7-inch display without having to pay for Pro features. The standard iPhone 14 retained the same A15 Bionic chip from the iPhone 13, which was the first time Apple didn't put the latest processor in the base model. The Pro models, however, got the new A16 Bionic chip and introduced the Dynamic Island, a pill-shaped cutout at the top of the screen that dynamically changed shape to show alerts, notifications, and background activities. This replaced the notch and became the signature design feature of the Pro models. The iPhone 14 series also introduced crash detection, which could automatically call emergency services if the phone detected a severe car crash. And in the US, Apple removed the physical SIM card tray entirely, moving to eSIM only. iPhone 15. The iPhone 15 series, released in 2023, was a significant update across the board. The biggest change was that Apple finally switched from the Lightning port to USB-C, following regulatory pressure from the European Union. This meant you could now use the same cable to charge your iPhone, MacBook, and iPad. The standard iPhone 15 models got the Dynamic Island that was previously exclusive to the Pro models, and they also received a 48-megapixel main camera, which was a huge jump in resolution. The Pro models introduced a titanium frame, which made them significantly lighter than the previous stainless steel models. The Pro models also got the A17 Pro chip that offered better performance and efficiency. Oh yeah, and the mute switch on the Pro models was replaced with an action button, which could be customized to trigger different functions like launching the camera, turning on the flashlight, or running shortcuts. iPhone 16. The iPhone 16 series, released in 2024, continued refining the formula. The standard iPhone 16 models got the action button that was previously exclusive to the Pro models, and they also introduced a new camera control button on the side, which was a physical button with haptic feedback that allowed for more precise camera controls like adjusting zoom or exposure with a swipe. The Pro models saw an increase in screen size, with the Pro moving to 6.3 inches and the Pro Max moving to 6.9 inches, making them the largest iPhones ever. The A18 Pro chip brought improved AI processing capabilities, and Apple introduced Apple Intelligence, which added AI-powered features like writing tools, image generation, and a smarter Siri. The camera system also got improved zoom capabilities, with the Pro Max offering 5x optical zoom. iPhone 17. The iPhone 17 series, released in 2025, represents Apple's latest generation. The most talked about addition here was the 24-megapixel front-facing camera, which was a significant upgrade from the previous 12-megapixel selfie camera, making selfies and FaceTime calls much sharper. Apple also introduced promotion across all models, meaning even the standard iPhone 17 finally got the 120Hz adaptive refresh rate display that had been exclusive to Pro models for years. The Pro models introduced a new vapor chamber cooling system, which helped sustain performance during heavy gaming or video editing without thermal throttling. There were also rumors of a new slim model in the lineup, but the overall design language remained consistent with the flat-edged, titanium-bodied look from the previous generations. These are all the iPhone's models explained, and I will see you in the next one.